instrumental in getting that airplane into the Heritage Flight Program. If you look to your right on the runway, you can see our T-Bird about to take to the sky. The Shooting Star was a one-seater aircraft, and the pilots being trained to fly it were all coming from the piston-driven aircraft like the Mustangs, T-6s, and Corsairs. They found at training that it was just a little bit more difficult coming to something that only had one seat and had no instructor with them. And in particular, the more powerful Allison J-33 jet engine was making it difficult for the young pilots to make the transition. So Lockheed simply added 3 feet to the P-80 for an instructor's seat with full panels and control, and the T-33 was born. It was first flown in 1948 and was produced through 1958. During the Korean War, T-33s were used for armed reconnaissance and as a fighter bomber for ground interdiction. The P-80 actually did make aviation history during the Korean War as well. In the first all-jet combat encounter, when it shot down a more maneuverable Soviet MiG-15. Jerry's going to be coming back around in the airspace to do a fast banana pass at approximately 400 miles per hour. Takes him a little bit of time. Again, not quite as fast as today's airplanes, but here he comes from the right. The U.S. Air Force used the T-33, and the Navy used their own version called the TV-2 for over 3 decades as their basic jet trainer. And although it was phased out of the Air Training Command in the early 70s, it was still used as a proficiency trainer for senior officers and other missions. It wasn't actually until the 1990s that the last T-33s were retired from United States Air Force service. Canada actually did not retire their T-33s until 2005. Some of those aircraft were over 50 years old and still in service training the young men in the Canadian Air Force. It's actually still being used in countries like Turkey, Greece, Japan, and Thailand. Jerry's going to be coming from the left to the right. He'll do a loop for us. He's going to start out at about 350 miles per hour as he comes by. He'll top out at the top of the loop at 200 miles per hour, going to 4,000 feet. He's going to do a roll as he approaches the top. And come back down, and he's going to do it all over again. He's going to come into a Cuban 8, which will be 2 loops coming from the right to the left. He will be, as he comes down to the bottom, pulling approximately 5 Gs in this older aircraft. By the time he gets up to the top, he'll be down to about 1 G just to start it all over again. After 60 years, the T-33 had been used to train more jet pilots than any other jet trainer in the world. Between 1948 and 1958, over 6,900 T-Birds were built worldwide. 5,800 of those, including the one you see today, were built by Lockheed, and they were for the United States Air Force. 1,100 others were built by Canadair on license from Lockheed for the Canadian Air Force and other military forces worldwide. This particular aircraft was one of the very last off the assembly line in 1958. Here's the final loop. This aircraft was used by the United States Air Force from 1958 to 76, and in 1976 it was sold to Yugoslavia, where it served until 1986. In 86, it returned to the United States in private hands, aircraft while still in its crate after it had returned from Yugoslavia. Here he comes from the right to left, doing a barrel roll at 370 miles per hour, nice and slow. This airplane in 1990 started a 2.5-year restoration project where both the airframe and the engine were totally overhauled, and this distinctive paint scheme from the United States Air Force Thunderbirds was added. In 1993, this air show act, the Vintage Thunderbird, was launched by Fowler and Randall. 16 years later, and over 500 performances later, it's still around to delight the crowds. Jerry's coming back from our left to our right. He'll be doing a 4-point roll. Again, most of his passes are between 370 and 400 miles per hour. A little bit about the paint scheme. It was actually a paint scheme used by our United States Air Force Thunderbirds narrators aircraft and for VIP and press rides out in the 1950s and 60s. The T-33 was the aircraft used specifically for the narrator to get to a show beforehand and take the press ride to make sure that everybody knew that Thunderbirds were coming to town. Our owner, Big Dog, believes this is his way of saluting both our men and women in uniform at home, and especially those protecting our freedoms throughout the world. Jerry's coming from the left to the right now to do a triple roll. I'm sorry, right to left.
Just a little learner dyslexia.
Yes. I need to write a L&R on my hands, I suppose. We have a cruising speed of 400 miles per hour with approach speed of about 150. We carry 813 gallons of fuel when we leave to go to other locations, which gives us a range of just around 1,100 miles. We do have a top speed of 600 miles per hour in the T-33, but that's being at the ceiling, which is closer to over 40,000 feet, which we don't quite approach. We go about 23 to 28,000 feet when we're traveling from show to show. Our pattern speed, again, is about 300 miles per hour. A little bit about the engine in this airplane. The original engine was overhauled 16 years ago, but this past winter, as we call our aircraft Big Dog 1, got a brand new Allison J-33 engine. And yes, it was one of the mass produced right out of the can. He's coming from the left to the right. Knife edge pass. Great time to have your cameras ready. He'll do one more pass. In addition to the new engine, we also have 1,462 new stainless steel screws added to the Big Dog. We have approximately 4,600 pounds of thrust, 9,200 horsepower in the Allison J-33 A35 single shaft dual compressor centrifugal flow turbojet engine. Jerry is going to be coming again from the left to the right. He'll be doing a slow banana, so those of you who have your cameras out, now's a good time to get them ready, because he's going to be slowing down to about 290 miles per hour. T-33 flying in the United States and the rest of the world, and this is one of the finest being brought out to the public.
He took them for a demo ride.
Jerry's going to be coming back from the right to left, do a slow pitch up at show center, and go about 2,000 feet to come back around to land.
So good.
It's a
If you notice on the wings, we have what are called wingtip fuel tanks. We carry approximately 231 gallons of fuel in each of those wingtip fuel tanks. They can be jettisoned off in case of an emergency when we might need to land with a little bit less fuel.
You know, it really is kind of amazing, Lunar, to see the T-33 fly. It was so important. The single-seat P-80 or later the F-80 shooting star was so very important to the development of jet aviation, and Lockheed just did a marvelous job with helping the United States Air Force transition from props to jets. And the history is amazing, isn't it?
It really is. There's a lot of thought that went into, well, the P-80 is actually being brought out at the end of World War II. Its purpose was to serve in World War II. But it wasn't ready in time because, thank goodness, it was done with World War II.
Just about everything in except don't have
And so when they were
TKS.
transitioning these young pilots, they really were not transitioning well because of the difference in power going from P-51s to Corsairs and such. They really needed someone in the backseat with them understanding the difference in the jet engine power versus the piston-driven engine.
And the P-80, or later the F-80 shooting star, was, as a single-seater, there was no way to properly train the pilots.
That is correct. Lockheed did an amazing job again. When I sit in the back seat, I do nothing else but sit there. But we're coming from show to show. I can see everything that's going on. I have full panel, so I know what our airspeed is, our altitude, every little thing that Jerry has in the front seat, I have in the back seat.
Including a stick.
Including a stick that does absolutely nothing but sit there. So as Jerry's landing now, a little bit about the landing for the T-33, you'll notice as it gets further down the runway that the canopy starts to open. It opens at about an inch at about 110 miles per hour. As he slows down to about 70 miles per hour, he fully opens the canopy. And this is because it is designed to be a part of the braking system on the T-33. So just watch as he's slowing down. He's not going to be able to slow down without it, and there it comes open now. It also acts as an air conditioner, especially on days like this. That nice bit of rush of air as you're landing does cool off